Hi, this is Chipper Jones, and welcome to the Whitetail Edge podcast.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Whitetail Edge podcast. I'm here with someone who needs no introduction, Hall of Fame baseball player, Major League bow hunter, my buddy, Chipper Jones. What's up, man?
How you doing?
Good, buddy. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be on with you. It's been a long time.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I appreciate you getting on with me. How's things
Yep.
been?
Not too bad. Just hunting season's kind of winding down right now. I was on the road quite a bit this year, so now that I'm home, that honeydew list is long. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this little interview podcast thing, and then I'm gonna get on it.
All right, man. That sounds good. That sounds good. I appreciate you hopping on here. So, what's been up? I mean, this season, you said you were on the road a lot. I believe you correct me if I'm wrong, but you hit Iowa up, Kansas, Mississippi, right?
Yeah, those are
Okay.
my three main spots this year. Obviously, spending the most time in Iowa and Kansas. I was right there around 1st of November. I was in Iowa for 18 out of 21 days. I came home for about 10 days, and we got a really big deer on camera in Kansas. So I beat it back up there to try and hunt that deer. And yeah, so it's like I said, you sandwich a trip to Mexico to make mama happy, and right in there around Thanksgiving and Christmas and the hunt season, man, it's nice that January 1 finally gets here and you can take a deep breath and kind of regroup a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So, before we get into that incredible hunting season that you're going to have a hard time probably forgetting because it was an awesome one for you. For anybody that doesn't know, I think obviously most people are going to think Chipper Jones baseball first off.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know that Chipper's a big hunter, obviously you don't follow Chipper too close. But how did that all start, Chipper? Because you were born in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, pretty much whatever my dad was doing, that's what I was doing. We belonged to a hunting club, actually a dog hunting club, in Central Florida. Yeah, we had 15 Walker Hounds when I was growing up. So I learned to appreciate those mornings when, you had a 40-degree morning and you had, 4 or 5 dogs trailing one and finally jump one and just chiming him. And those boys in Florida, man, they'll tear up those Ford and Chevys, after a 4-inch spike. So that's really where my appreciation for hunting came about. But I mean, whatever was in season, that's what me and my father were doing. Um, love to get in the boat, go fishing, love to go to the golf course and tee it up. Obviously, he was a baseball coach when I was growing up. He was the assistant. He was the offensive coordinator on the football team at the high school, in my hometown. So we were pretty busy back then. But I guess the evolution of my deer hunting kind of progressed past the dog hunting. Obviously, you move up into Georgia. I had my little league coach had, I think, 400 acres right on the Flint River in South Georgia. And you go up there and you still hunt those deer, around all those peanut cotton fields down in South Georgia. Now you're talking about 200-pound deer that make those little Florida deer I've been chasing around look like dogs. So I think Georgia was really what kind of spoiled me, I guess you could say. Then I get I've signed my first contract. I had already dabbled a little bit in Texas. Kind of figured that was where I wanted to go, where we could control things. There's a lot of high fences down there. I had a 10,000 acre ranch from 2000 to 2016. down in the Golden Triangle in South Texas, and got into the commercial aspect of it, made a little money, but got to the point where, mom and dad coming up on 70. Um, it was an hour back and forth each way to get the kids to school. And it just seemed like it was kind of snowballing towards, hey, I gotta get out of this and get back to Georgia. Through all those contacts that I made when I was down in Texas and um, running an outfitting business, that's kind of where Buck Commander first got started, with Adam LaRoche and Brian Langerhans, Tombo Martin, myself, Matt Duff, and Willie Robertson. That's where all that kind of got started, and but Duff and I were kind of in that for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and just really kind of wanted to do something, break out on our own, and do something more informative, to where you know we could teach some of the things that we learned. We could learn from some of the people that we've come across through the years, and that's kind of how Major League Bowhunter got started. And I think we just finished up filming season 13, if you can believe it, of Major League Bowhunter.
Wow,
So
man. Congratulations.
yeah, pretty successful entity in and of itself, and we still like doing it. Not quite as much as we used to. We're not quite as mad at the deer as we used to be, but I think we're still putting out a good product, and we're killing some good deer.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. 13 season. That's pretty incredible. But
Yep.
so what was that first Midwest experience? What was that like for you? And where was it?
I think, well, it was probably with Triple Creek Outfitters and our good buddy Richard Blakesley in St. John, Kansas. I can remember having killed a few deer on the ranch. I didn't start bow hunting until I was, let's see, I'm 50 now. I was probably in my early 30s before I ever picked up a bow. So I didn't really appreciate um, the nuances and the little idiosyncrasies with bow hunting. It was always rifle. We had so many deer that we had to kill every year down in Texas. It's impossible to do that with a bow. You got to do it with a rifle. But I had a buddy once tell me, he goes, once you pick up a bow, when you're hunting, when you're after that one buck, you're going to be bow hunting. And I hate to admit it, but he was exactly right. I mean, when we had to do our culling, we did it with the rifle, but when we were hunting a specific deer, it was with the bow. And I got a chance to go up to Kansas a couple times. Adam LaRoche has a place in Kansas and Missouri, right there outside of Fort Scott, Kansas. And but my very first experience was in St. John, Richard Blakesley, a Triple Creek Outfitter, and I'll never forget. Set me up on a water hole. Nice. I mean, this deer probably wasn't 127, 128 inches. Big old mature 8 point, had a little drop tine about 2 inches long. But that thing could have been a booner for all I care.
Yeah.
I mean, it was my first Midwest deer with a bow. And man, that hunt right there was a stepping stone toward some awfully big deer hitting the ground in the Midwest, through the last, probably 15 to 18 years.
So you've hunted Kansas, you've hunted Iowa. Have you hunted Illinois?
I've hunted Illinois a handful of times. We are I've been on Duff for the last couple of years. My partner in Major League Bowhunter. I'm like, man, we gotta start making Missouri and Illinois and Kentucky more of a priority to get to on a yearly basis. Obviously, we're concentrating on Kansas and Iowa, and those are two places. Iowa, you're only gonna get drawn once
Every other year
four
now?
years,
Oh, Iowa, yeah. I'm sorry. I thought you were
every
talking Kansas, yeah.
every 3 or 4 years, and it's getting harder and harder to draw in Kansas. It used to be, Kansas was a given.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, Michael Waddell and T-Bone didn't get drawn. I mean, with Bone Collector last year, my wife did. This year my wife didn't get drawn. Other guys in the crew didn't get drawn. So
My boss
it's
didn't
it
get drawn this year. Ben
yeah,
Rising.
it's becoming harder and harder. So we've got to have those backup plans, especially in states where it's two tags over the count. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Oklahoma, Missouri. I'm not exactly sure what it is in Illinois. I think it might only be one buck,
If
but
you're a landowner, if I'm sorry, if you get if you're a landowner, even non-resident,
yeah,
it's got to be over a certain amount of acres, I believe. I think it's 40 to 80 acres. You
right.
can get 2 tags.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
see, again, that's something where we need to be putting our time in, because in those years where you don't get drawn in some of our best states, which is Kansas and Iowa, I've kind of circumvented the system a little bit in Iowa, because they they put certain tags up for auction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of my favorite places to hunt on the planet. I've got a great dude that I'm up there hunting with, farmers, got 4 or 5 um, um, farms up there that you can hunt every wind. He's got big deer, and I've got a little money, so
Yep.
I can spend. If I save up, I can spend it on being able to buy one of those tags and go to Iowa. Still put in for my points every year, and hope. I think I got 4 points coming into next year, so I should draw and not
Yep.
have to spend all that money on an auction tag. But
Now that money on a
instead of
tag though goes to some good, right?
100%
Yeah.
goes right back into the state of Iowa, into the hush program. Well, that's one thing I will say about Iowa. That hush program is tremendous for being able to donate the meat to families, especially around the holidays, that needed a whole heck of a lot more than I did.
Yeah. 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 It's a great program. Iowa's really got some things figured out there. And yeah, and I know you dabbled in Ohio a little bit with me.
Yep.
Then that didn't quite work out 100%. You guys, you, you came a little late.
That's the coldest I've ever been in my life. The one time I come up there, and I think the coldest, I think it was like -8 or -11 while we were up there. Like, we couldn't even film because the camera would freeze up. And when the camera freezes up
It's
and
cold.
you're having to pull those heater bodysuits out and put those on in the stand, it's some kind of cold.
Didn't you sat in those ponds, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, for anyone, I'm trying to paint this picture here. Chipper was sitting in this little pine draw in the middle of a giant ag field. So it's blowing. I mean, there isn't much protection. You were sitting right on the edge. So I can imagine that was cold.
Yeah, Brandon Danker and I, we came out of that saying, okay, well, we just figured out what our limitations were, and I guess minus degrees and the wind blowing 10 to 15 miles an hour. That's probably our limit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a ton of fun when it's that cold. This year during Christmas, was the coldest weather that I've ever seen in my life in Ohio. It got like negative almost 40 wind chills here. And Papa sat out there 2 days before Christmas, killed his biggest deer in a tree
Wow.
stand.
Wow.
Yeah. It
That's
was pretty,
impressive.
yeah, it was
That is
awesome.
impressive, because and I think most people all over the Midwest kind of got that swing that came through. I mean, guy that uh the farm that we have in Kansas, the owner said they had 40, 50-mile-an-hour winds, and it was, in the -40 wind chills. I can't imagine being out in that. And it just kind of swept across the whole nation, and kind of a big swath, and then it was gone, and it was back to like 50 to 60 degrees within a couple of days. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's been weird. The weather here, I mean, I'm just looking at like the 10-day forecast and it just doesn't look like it's going to get, very cold. For as cold as it was during Christmas, I'm like, man,
No.
you would have thought it was going to be brutal the rest of the winter, but so far, it's pretty mild. But yeah, that lease that you were coming up and hunting with me. You guys ended up kind of backing out, and we took that lease over when you guys were done. And man, we had some pretty good success on it.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt Ohio's been one of those states that's kind of it's not talked about like,
Mhm.
the Iowas and the Illinois and the Kansases, but I call them sleeper states, Kentucky,
Indiana.
I, Iowa, Indiana. Those are some sleeper states that not a lot of people talk about, but consistently produce giant deer, each and every year. That deer your pops killed was my goodness.
Yeah.
That was a giant, So yeah, I mean, whenever you're talking about killing world-class deer, and what I mean by world class, I mean, I think anything over 150 inches is a world-class deer. I mean, I don't think people really realize how difficult it is, especially when you're hunting on camera, when you um double the size of the image in the tree, you double the smell, you've got to watch your entries and your exits, and make sure that you're not bumping deer and all this kind of stuff. It's really hard to get a mature Midwest deer within 25 yards and be able to not only do that, get in his hip pocket, but to execute a shot and get it on camera.
Yeah.
That is something that I don't really think people can appreciate, because they see it so much on TV. They think, you know,
Kind of watered
we just
down.
go out, we got them tied to the tree, and we let them loose and we shoot them. We're in the tree for tens of hundreds of hours just to get 22 minutes worth of content to fill an episode. So
Yep.
there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's a lot of fun,
Yep.
but there are a lot more unfruitful days than there are fruitful in this business.
Yeah. So I know it's like this with a lot of guys. It was like this with myself when I first started, especially once I got into the filming and taking it a whole lot more serious, pursuing a certain deer. And I'm sure that you had a moment like that too. But, when you finally figure out your entry, your exit, the what you can get away with as far as what the wind's doing and what your scent cone's going to be doing, did you have like an aha moment when you finally like you cracked this deer, you got him killed, and then at the end you were like, man, you learned XYZ?
Yeah, I think so, and it was probably 2014 or 15. We were hunting Cow Creek in Kansas, and we had we were hunting 1 640 square, and it was probably only maybe 140 150 acres of huntable land. I mean,
Mhm.
we had crop on both sides of Cow Creek. Maybe the widest part may have been 100 yards all the way through the property down the creek, and it probably squeezed down to like 20 or 25 yards at certain points. So entry and exit, really important. Like, you can't step foot on that property until the crops come out, because those big deer are laying in the crops. And the reason we know this is we got three world-class animals in one picture. Okay, in one picture during the summer. And a deer that B Dank and I were hunting, called Mahuka, which he ended up killing. Then there was Palmer, was the second deer in line, and the third deer was Caesar. Okay, which B Dank ended up killing the next year. Okay, we had Palmer ended up scoring 196. Um, Mahuka scored 192, and Caesar scored 188. There were three giants in one
Dang.
picture. Okay.
Wow.
So we were having trouble once the crops came out. It saturates that Cow Creek piece with a ton of deer. Okay. So you have to be spot on with your entry and your exit, because more times than not, when you step foot on that place, you're going to bump deer. Okay.
Mhm.
So you have to wait for the absolute perfect wind if you want to go hunt a specific tree. Well, we were hunting the barn door. I knew from the summer before that this was going to be the spot where we were going to kill them. These deer were actually not feeding on our property. They were feeding across the road. Okay. They were using a underneath the bridge access of Cow Creek to come underneath the road, go around the bridge, and come back on us. And they were filtering back through. Well, when do they do that? They do it right at daylight. Well,
Mhm.
when do you get into your stand? Usually right at daylight. And I felt like we were bumping too many deer going in. Okay. So I finally got tired of, this, the way we were doing it. And I looked at B Dank one night and I was like, we're getting up at 3:30 and we're gonna be in the stand no later than 4:30. It gets daylight at 6 o'clock that time of year, maybe 5:45, 6 o'clock, 6:15, somewhere in there. I was like, we're gonna be in there an hour early. Take a nap if you want, but we're gonna be in there when those deer come through. And we had never seen Palmer on the hoof up to that point. We had one picture of him and never seen him on the hoof. And that morning at daylight, we were in there early and he showed up at 27 yards and gave, yeah, I mean, just, and that was kind of you've got to switch things up.
Yeah.
If you're going in at daylight, right at daylight, and you're not having any success, get in there early one morning, like an hour early, and see what happens, because it really worked for me. And got me my biggest deer today, 196. Crazy.
Man, that's an awesome story.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's one thing that like a lot of people, and I know a lot of these guys, and I used to be one of these guys, was you just can't comprehend when you see some of these guys that are consistently killing big deer, and you're like, man, obviously something's fishy with this guy. He's killing a bunch of big deer.
Hmm.
And it's just like, well, once you figure out, just like you said, that, switching things up, doing things a little different, not hunting the exact same tree stand and the exact same woods every single day, going in at the same time, you're not going to, you might get lucky.
Deer can pattern you too. just
Exactly.
just remember that deer can pattern you too. And if they get used to your patterns, they will avoid you, and they
Yeah.
will avoid your patterns.
How often do you hear that story of that buck that you kind of hear this a lot in public land stories is, well, that buck was bedding and he was watching everybody come in. He was bedding close to the road and everyone's going deep. They're all walking past this deer. Excuse me. And you hear this more times than not. I mean, one of my buddies killed a giant this year in Ohio, like 230 plus, and he figured out, well, every time he's going in, he doesn't show up, no pictures. Every time he doesn't hunt, he's getting daylight pictures of this deer. He's like, what in the world? Well, come to find out, this deer was bedded right by the road and watching him come in every single time. So he went the long way around the field
And I
and
bet he
killed him
first time. Bet he
first
killed him the
time.
first hunt. Yep, yep.
Yep.
It's amazing. You got to switch up tactics from time to time, and I guarantee you, most of these guys that are going out and killing 200-inch deer every year. I know a good friend of mine, Adam LaRoche. He kills 200-inch deer pretty much every year on one of his either Kansas or Missouri properties, and it's because he knows every inch of that property. He
Mhm.
knows deer movement.
Yep.
He knows how to read deer because he's been doing it on those properties for a long period of time. If you're going to jump around to these, different properties, getting new properties, and I love getting new properties. I love setting up. That's one of my favorite things to do.
Mhm.
But I mean, we're probably 5 years into this place in Kansas, and I'm still learning. I
Mhm.
mean, because it's a different type of property. It's got a lot of CRP in the middle, real open, and a lot of trees and stuff on the outer edges. So as opposed to most properties where you kind of start on the outside and work your way in to tighten the noose on these deer. We're starting in the middle and we got to fan out, and try and learn this piece of property from the inside out. And it's taken a while, but we're starting to get used to, okay, these deer in that corner, they're going to go to that destination field. These deer over in this corner, they're kind of moving to the east, and all those things, you got to process. And it's been a really challenging place to hunt over the last 4 or 5 years. But now that we're starting to get it, we're starting to get in some of these big deer's hip pocket.
Yeah, you can kind of get it down to an art form, but yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, those first couple years on that property, I mean, it's a lot of fun trying to, figure things out. And I mean, a lot like that lease that you were hunting, it kind of that was a big piece, 500 acres. That's huge for Ohio, but it just kind of takes a while to figure out where the movement's concentrated or where they're going and coming. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. But anyway, I want to get into your season that you had. Was the first deer that you killed in Kansas?
First deer I killed was in Iowa.
Okay. So what
Iowa.
happened?
Well, man, most years in Iowa, it doesn't take very long. I
Mhm.
mean, it's that good a place. Um, the farmer is really good at getting pictures. He loves growing deer. He doesn't necessarily care about, um, you know, the actual harvesting of it. He's got a 10-year-old kid that absolutely loves hunting. He went out and killed a 170-inch deer with his muzzle loader this year. So I think
Nice.
he's more doing it for that. But he sends me all these pics, and he's got 10 or 12 shooters every year. I mean, by shooters, he'll have some mature 155s to 165s, but then he's got a couple of giants.
Yeah.
And I came face to face with a buck that we call Beamer, had a probably 17, 18-inch third main beam, probably was in the mid 80s, that we were hunting pretty religiously. But I think like anywhere else, when you don't live in Iowa, you live in Georgia, and you got 3 kids at home and a wife, um, makes it kind of hard to not at some point settle. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yep. No,
And
totally.
I had seen this buck one time. I had him at, oh man, probably 30, 35 yards with no shot. Um, but we were hunting in a place where it was wind specific. Like, you had to have a west or a northwest wind. Anything else just didn't work, you know.
Mhm.
And we were running up against straight norths and straight souths, and didn't get a chance to hunt him a ton. So we had to hunt elsewhere. Now, there's plenty of other, really, really nice deer to go after. So it didn't bother me that much. I struggle with my equipment a little bit this year. We switched bows. We went from Matthews to Bowtech. Shout out to Bowtech for jumping on board with us and showing us some loyalty. That was really cool. But like whenever you change bows, if you shoot the same arrow and you shoot the same broadhead, but you're not shooting the same feet per second, it it's going to have an effect, you
Yep.
know. So really struggled with my equipment early on. Um, quite frankly, didn't know where the arrow was going when I touched it off. So took a lot of time to shoot. Took a lot of trial and error. Even whacked a couple of does just for practice, till I finally got comfortable. And like I said, I had been home for 3 days in the month of um, November up until the 21st, and was really feeling the heat a little bit to get my rear end home.
Mhm.
So the last morning before I came home, I had a really nice framey 8 point, uh, probably 4.5 years old, that came put on a show. I mean, he ran a bunch of deer off. He was running does all over the place. There was like 8 inches of snow on the ground. It was just it was pretty, you know. And I turned
What's
around
the
to my
date on
camera.
this, Chipper?
Oh, I don't know. It was probably a few days before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Um, so and I really just I turned around to my cameraman. I was like, "This has been an awesome hunt. I'm gonna go ahead and shoot this deer." And he was like, "I'm with you, bro. It's been awesome." So
Mhm.
we laid it down, uh, made a good shot on the deer, and we came home. You know, I
Yep.
mean, we had a good Thanksgiving. So that was kind of the summation of my Iowa hunt.
Cool. Cool. So from there, Kansas.
Yeah, we went back to Kansas and we spent some time there early season. And, you know, early season in Kansas, I get so excited to go hunting in September and October because it's hunting season.
Yep.
And it's probably not the best time to be up there because you get more frustrated than anything else. But yeah, right there during the middle of the rut, we had a deer show up on one of our cell cams. And you know, we got 4 or 5 guys on our text chain here in the crew, and we were passing it along, and Brandon Danker goes, "Boys, that's a booner. I mean, that's a heck, that's 175, 180 inch deer." And I'm like, "Nah, man, it's night picture. It's not, you know, he's probably 100, probably high 60s, low 70s, maybe." B Dank's like, "Trust me." So we got one picture of him. That was it. But we knew which way he was headed, and we had another camera in the area. We just had to be in Kansas to check the camera. Okay,
Right.
so we finally get back up there, and come to find out that not only is this deer a giant, but he's broken off 20 inches. Like, this was literally 2 weeks prior. This is a probably 202 to 205 inch deer.
Yeah.
All right. We, you know, and none of us have ever killed a 200-inch deer. So, you know, now we're embarking on uncharted territory, you know. So it's a beeline to get, you know, to get to the deer stand. But we've got him narrowed down, you know. I
Mhm.
mean, now we've got him on 2 cameras. Now we know he's on property. He came from off property. Now he's on property, and he's pretty dead set on our does. You
Yep.
know, we got a ton of them, and he's running them all around. So it's unfortunate this deer's broke off, but he's still like low to mid 80s, even with 20 inches broken off. And I don't know about you, but I'm not passing up a 180 if he walks
Heck
underneath my
no.
tree.
No, sir.
So I had 4 or 5 encounters with this deer. I had him at 27 yards with his head behind a tree, and a doe and a yearling spook him. Um, I had him. We were we were walking down Cow Creek on an exit one evening, and we were walking about 50 yards off of alfalfa field, trying to stay in the timber so we wouldn't be seen.
Mhm.
Sure enough, he's right on the edge of the alfalfa field at dark, sees us, we bump him.
Oh,
All right.
man.
And I'm thinking he's gone off the property,
Yeah.
back to the north. And I'm like, he's gone.
You
Like,
only get
he's
so many
done.
cracks at him. Yeah.
He's done. Well, B Dank said when we got back to the buggy that night, he goes, he stopped before he went on the ground to the to the north, and he went into Cow Creek. So he stayed on us. He did not bust all the way to the north. And I was like, well, until I see him, like, I need this deer to be south of us. Okay.
Mhm.
He's got to be south of Cow Creek. If he's south of Cow Creek, we're going to kill him. If he's north of Cow Creek, we don't have a chance. All
Yep.
right. Because we're playing south to kill
Mhm.
this deer. Um, 2 mornings later, we get bad winds the next day and a half. 2 mornings later, we're sitting in the stand. We got a south wind, doe and a yearling spook from the north coming to us from Cow Creek. Okay.
Mhm.
2 minutes later, I look back. there he is. And he's spooked. All right. And he's running right to us. Okay. He kind of skirts us at 60 yards, but he crosses Cow Creek to the south. All right. So now I'm like, we got it.
Yep.
Okay. So he had crossed, there was one of two places he can cross Cow Creek. I'm sitting on one to the west. He had crossed now twice that I know of. He had crossed the one 200 yards to the east. Duff is in town. Okay. I'm like, Duff, you and Donnie, the camera guy, you and Donnie set up on the east crossing. I'll set up where I've been setting up. You're going to have to get up under a cedar tree. You're going to be on the ground, but he's going to cross one of these two spots. We'll get a shot at. That afternoon, we get a straight south. It's cold, and the Cow Creek's frozen over. So deer don't like crossing ice, right? So they'll skirt Cow Creek. He comes out at 22 yards in front of Duff. All right. Stops him, zips him right across the belly.
Oh, man.
I mean, he's literally got tears in his eyes. I mean, had him perfectly coming right to the crossing. I guess rushed the shot a little bit, zips him right across the belly.
Heartbreaking.
All right. So heartbreaking. Like, you can't imagine.
Yeah.
The biggest deer, it turns out before he was broken up, this is the biggest deer that we've ever put on camera with Major League Bowhunter, Yeah. So
he's broke it this time, right?
He's broke it this time. But he's still, I killed him. He ended up scoring 182.
Yeah.
So
man, what a story. I didn't know all this.
Yeah. Right. So the next afternoon we get the same wind. I'm like, let's try it again, Duff. I mean, we know he's still south of us. As long as he's south of us, we got a chance. And I dropped them off at the East Creek crossing, and I got about 50 yards after dropping them off, and I turned around to be Dank. I was like, he ain't coming to that creek crossing tonight. He's gonna come to ours, and we're gonna kill him.
Yep.
Sure enough, he came in, and he probably fed around for about 20 minutes out in front of us at about 40 yards, probably got to within 25, didn't have a shot. Finally gave me a hole about this big that I could shoot through at 35 yards and dotted him.
Dude,
so,
man, what a story.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But it just being able to have the encounters with him, through about 10 days of hunting him. And then, I don't necessarily have to be the guy that gets the deer on the ground. But when you've got an opportunity to get a once in a lifetime animal on the ground, you do what you have to do. And bringing Duff in and him getting an opportunity to do it just adds to the story. It just adds an extra layer to the story. And then to go back and do it again and have the same plan and have it work out for both of us. You got a swing and a miss, and you got, the ultimate kill. It was just a phenomenal story on just a magnificent animal.
Yeah. When's that episode going to drop?
All new content for Major League Bowhunter starts third quarter. So July 1st, all of our content from this year will start coming out. Everything you're seeing on in first and second quarter was from last year.
Gotcha. Man, that is such an incredible story. I mean, how many times did you guys think it's done? It's over.
Yeah, you never. I mean, especially after you zip him. Like, I mean, he gave him a haircut too. We checked him out the next night, and I mean, he had not a gash, but I mean, because the hide wasn't broken, but I mean, a 6-inch, where he had zero hair across his belly. So yeah. I mean, it literally. I mean, if the deer drops another 1.5 inches, 2 inches, he kills him. Yeah. Right then and there, and I don't get the opportunity. But like I said, it doesn't matter. We as a company have got to get that deer on the ground.
Yeah, man, there was obviously something there that deer really liked on that property. I mean, Any
Well,
idea? Any idea?
that's a great question. We had no summer pictures of him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure he came from the north down Cow Creek. I was talking about those creek crossings, mine to the west, Duff's to the east. Right there where my stand was on the west crossing, Cow Creek turns and goes straight north. Okay, for about 300 yards, and then there's railroad tracks and other people's property.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's not a big, but there's food. There's alfalfa to the west. There's alfalfa to the north. There was winter wheat to the south, and this little piece of property for some reason just holds a lot of deer, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not particularly dense. Um, it's rugged country, but it's not particularly dense, but it holds a ton of deer. It was nothing for you. We had two stands on that property, probably within 100 yards of each other, and it was nothing for you to see 30 or 40 deer every time you sat on this piece of property. And you could see forever through the timber. You could see for over 100 yards. And then obviously, if you were on a field edge, you could see as far as the eye could see.
A bunch of cedars.
Quite a few cedars.
Is that what you sat in when you killed him, or?
No, I was sitting in a cottonwood, uh, literally hanging over Cow Creek. I mean, if I fall out of that stand, it's probably 28, 30 feet to the bottom of Cow Creek from where I was sitting.
Dang,
Yeah.
nice. Man, incredible story. I can't wait to see that episode. I mean, you're exactly right. It's gonna make that story so much better. Like this year, I killed my biggest deer to date, and the night before I killed him, I missed him. Not even close.
Really?
Yeah. You know, and when you finally, you build up this history with a deer, just like you guys did. This was a new property for me. So he shows up in the summer. That's when I find the deer. And you build that history, whether it is just a couple months or a couple years. I think that, you're still just as infatuated with that animal. You grow somewhat obsessed to a scary level, but so I get an opportunity at that deer, and when they're 5 years or older, and you miss or you screw up, you think that's it. Yep, bye. And you just don't
But
know.
it's a good thing that you had that clean miss, though. Wouldn't you have felt worse if you know
Absolutely.
you had made
Absolutely.
that bad shot and actually
Yeah. Yep.
hit him high in the shoulder or something, or hit him low in the leg, and now
Yeah.
you're not going to see him.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, just for the respect of the animal to make a bad shot, obviously you don't want that. But then again, there's also man, you're probably definitely never gonna see that deer again. So a clean miss, I'm like, like why did I even take that shot? I'm self-filming. Look back at the footage and I'm like, you're an idiot.
yeah,
you know. So, but like I said, you feel like you only get so many opportunities. Maybe a lot of times only one opportunity at an animal like that. So I went back in the next night and killed him. And yeah, I think the story is just going to be so much better. I think with hunting, it's always some ups, some major ups, and some major downs.
yeah.
So I know you can relate with that, but
Well, there's no doubt. We had a situation this year with one of our new guys to the crew. His name's Donnie Mixon. He does some filming for us, but he's also a big hunter and a very good hunter. Hunts a lot in Kentucky and here in Georgia. He's got an opportunity to hunt Kansas the last few years, and he's been on a giant, absolute giant. You'll see this when it drops. I mean, this deer's 190 inches. He's hunted him for the last couple years. Shows up on camera again this year, and was very patient. Dotted all of his I's, crossed all of his T's. Didn't go, he would didn't go in there without the right wind. When he didn't have the right wind, he would observe from a long way away. I mean, he had his finger on the pulse of what this giant deer was doing. All he needed was the right set of circumstances. Finally gets those right set of circumstances, gets him at, I think, 18 yards, full draw, and for some reason doesn't stop him and touches one off and shoots him back. Okay.
Mhm.
Shoots him back. So you were fortunate enough just to clean miss.
Yep.
You know, if he clean misses, he probably gets another opportunity at this deer, you know, in the near future.
Mhm.
But he stuck him mid torso back, you know, right in front of the back leg, and never seen or heard from again. You know, I
Man,
mean, it's just it's unfortunate
heartbreaking.
when you see this footage and the size of this deer and the heartbreak that is in this guy's, you know, eyes, and this guy's one of the most upbeat, fun, you know, just outgoing kind of guys. And like, I was worried about him for a while. I called I called I called and checked up on him for like 4 or 5 straight days just to make sure he didn't need therapy or something, you know. So we've all been there.
Yeah.
That's part of bow hunting. We've all injured deer. It's not what we're here to do. We've got tremendous respect for these animals, and we want to make it as humane as humanly possible. But sometimes it just doesn't work out that way.
Yeah. Man, with that being my biggest deer this year, and I'm sure his name's Donnie, right? Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
yeah.
And same with Duff. I can't speak for those guys, but I can speak for myself. When I saw that deer finally coming in, dude, I couldn't compose myself. Like, I thought something cardiac was wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I just got to ask you, and I don't know if there is any comparison at all, but you've been in some big moments in your baseball career
Mhm.
and you've killed some giant deer. What is that? Does it compare at all?
No, no, it doesn't. Because baseball wise, that's my domain.
Hmm.
Like, that's where I felt most comfortable. Okay. I've done everything that can be done on a baseball field so many times. It's just reflex, it's react.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not nervous when I go up there. Okay, I shouldn't say there's some butterflies your first at bat of the year, you know, big spots in playoff games. Is it? Yeah, of course you're going to be jittery, but
Right.
once you step in the box, muscle memory takes over. It's just you and the chess match between you and the pitcher. There's a tunnel between you and the pitcher. If that ball comes out in that tunnel, it's my job to whack it, you
Mm.
know. If it doesn't, you take it. And you know, 40,000 people, 50,000 people, you don't hear them when you're in the moment like that. The tree is not my domain. Okay. It's just not, because every hunt is going to be different. There's going to be a different variable thrown at you every single hunt. Um, I by no means, people say, "Oh, we're professional deer hunters." We're not professional deer hunters. We may get paid because we're on TV and stuff. That doesn't make us professional. We're still learning. That's our motto at Major League Bow Hunter: never
Never
stop
stop
learning.
learning. Yep.
All right. My dad always told me when I was on the baseball field, when you stop learning every single day you go to the field, you need to quit. Okay.
Hmm.
We learn something different every time out in the tree. So you can go over your checklist, and I know you've been through this. You can go over your checklist in the tree. Okay, if that deer comes out over there, you know, I'm going to turn. If he comes out here, I'm going to wait till he hits that opening. If he comes over here, I can't quite get him, so I got to wait till he hits that opening.
Hmm.
And then it happens bass backwards.
Yep.
Okay, he comes from behind, you know, and it completely freaks you out. You know,
Yep.
you can sit there like I'm sure Donnie did, go over his checklist. Okay, I'm going to draw. I'm going to take a deep breath. You know, da 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 da, grunt. I'm going to stop him in that. And, but when you have a world class animal coming at you, and you've got 15 minutes of B roll to sit there and think about it, it's amazing how quickly you get frazzled to the point where you forget your checklist,
Yep.
you know? And we've all done it. And it's unfortunate for Donnie because I tell you what, if he kills that deer, if he kills that deer this year, we got a 190, a 180, and a probably a low 70s on camera, you know, that hit the ground for Major League Bowhunter. Probably our best, or maybe our best year ever, you know.
Mhm.
But still, just getting the opportunity to get with, you know, in those big deer's hip pocket
Yeah.
to be in their bedroom was quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, that was just a question that, I was trying to think of some questions that I was going to ask you. And typically there is never an agenda when I do these podcasts, but I'm thinking like, what could I ask Chipper? And that was the only thing that really came to mind was, is there any correlation to that nervousness or what? But so thank you for answering that.
I can promise you this. There are very few times that I've ever felt my heartbeat in my chest or heard my heartbeat in my ears, with the exception of maybe one or two times in my personal life. They've all been deer hunt related, you
Okay.
know, where you just turn and you see a world class animal coming in to 25, 30 yards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll set the heart rate, you know, to off the charts kind of territory.
Well, didn't you batted against Randy Johnson, right?
Yeah. Many
That's
times.
that's an animal.
that's a that's a different animal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
He's
different animal.
he's yeah, 6'10", full of just kneecaps and elbows, throwing straight filth at you. Yeah.
Whew. I couldn't imagine. But so I just want to touch on the rest of your season here real quick. I don't want to keep you too long, but you ended up in Mississippi. That was the last place you went, right?
Yep, just got back on Sunday. I had a good trip. I was down there for about 10 days. Was lucky enough to get, we were at Long Shot Farms. That's Matt Duff's family farm that we try and end the season, go to, and kind of everybody get together and regroup. I was able to get my wife and three of my boys down there. They were, you know, riding the four wheelers and mudding and everything. But Taylor hadn't gotten a chance to hunt in the last 2 years. She didn't get
Mhm.
drawn in Kansas this year. So Mississippi was her only chance to get out. And lo and behold, I love it when a plan comes together because Duff and I had gotten there a couple days before Taylor did, and we got a chance to hunt a little bit and just came across this 8 point that, you know, was probably 4.5, 5.5 years old. Perfect deer for Taylor. So we
Mhm.
let him walk, and Taylor gets there, and second afternoon she's there, she punches his ticket, and you know, it was just, you know, it was the perfect plan. You know,
Yep.
next afternoon Duff gets a chance at a probably 100 and high 40s low 50s 10 point, punches his ticket. So good trip. I was down there for 10 days. I was on a deer called Moose that was probably in the 60s, real heavy, palmated deer. Never got a chance to get on him, but still a good successful trip. Anytime you can get two deer on the ground, you know, in a week or 10 days, that's a good trip.
Taylor pretty bit by the bug, is she?
Yeah, I mean, she is. She loves the Midwest. She was pretty heartbroken whenever she didn't get drawn in Kansas. It's always a good time. It's hard to get her out there. You know, we got we got a 4, a 5, and a 12 here at the house right now. So one of us has got to be here to take care of the kids.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, we like hunting together, you know.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, it's a logistical nightmare sometimes, but we work around it, and you know, we were able to get the boys out to Mississippi with us, and she was able to get something on the ground. It was awesome.
Yep. One last question here, Chip. What's your expectations for the Braves this year?
I'll tell you what, I feel like two of the other teams in the division got better in the
Yep.
offseason. Obviously, Philly making it to the World Series last year. They were kind of last year's Braves team from the year before, just kind of got hot at the right time, but they got better. You know, they picked
Mhm.
up some bullpen help. They got Trey Turner, who's a magnificent player. Love him as a ball player. So they're going to be a handful. The Mets, their owner goes out and spends half a billion every year on the free agent market. So it makes it kind of hard to compete. But we've locked up all of our good players. We're good. Everybody wants to see the big splash, and the Braves, sign the big free agent. But our GM Alex Anthopoulos has done a good job of refraining from giving into pressure, and he's got all of our young guys locked up, and we just got to stay healthy, man. We got to hope that Ronald Acuna gets back to being Ronald Acuna, and that knee is good. We got to hope for 30 starts out of all of our starters, which never happens, but we've got some depth in the pitching in the minors. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be another good year. A lot of people didn't give us a chance last year once we fell down 10 or 11 games. But one thing you can count on with the Braves, we play all 162, and they're going to play all 162 this year, and they'll be in the hunt.
Yep.
If they stay healthy, we just Lord willing, we just gotta pray for health, and maybe those 40-year-old starters in New York will, maybe they only make 18 or 20 starts. If that happens, they're gonna struggle.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of those young signings were pretty exciting that happened. And watching Austin Riley at third base is so much like watching you again. It's like reincarnation. We got an awesome third baseman that's a deer hunter.
He's a diehard deer hunter, man. We talk deer hunting more than we talk about hitting, whenever I'm around. So he's a good kid. He's got his head on straight. He's very coachable, and I'm proud to see him kind of taking the next step towards getting those perennial all-star votes, getting those perennial MVP votes. He's signed for a long time. He's going to be here in Atlanta for a long time, and it's nice to look out there and see another cornerstone at the hot corner, and we know that the 3-hole and third base is going to be taken care of for a long time.
Yeah, 100%. I got to meet him briefly in Cincinnati this past season, and just he's authentic, he's humble. Just I see a lot of him in you, which is it's ironic, but anyway, man, Chipper, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, man. It's been great to catch up with you. It's been a long time, so can't thank you enough.
My pleasure, buddy. It has been too long, and hopefully we'll find a way to get together and do a little bow hunting again.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. I got to head to Indianapolis. I'm heading to the ATA. So
ATA. All right, we'll tell everybody I said hello, and I know you had asked me about that jersey. You send it on down here. We'll get it signed.
All right, buddy. Thanks, man.
Yep. Take it easy.